Hey everyone, as mentioned on the daily financial news, we start off strong each and every Monday with Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. We have some interesting topics to discuss today. And the first one is going to be something we missed last week because I think all the proposals came out kind of midweek. And that is
Yeah.
there's a lot of potential tax changes coming, right? I think real estate investors need to be ready for a loss of some of the goodies. And let's just talk about them quickly and then we'll figure out which one might concern you the most. Loss of stepped up basis, 1031 exchange being eliminated or greatly reduced or banded, and then a significant rise in capital gains taxes. So I'm sure you've heard about them. Does any of them make you more concerned than others or anything like that?
All of them. The 1031 exchange, eliminating that is very interesting. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects, transactional volume. I talk to people all the time, talked to a guy last week that's looking to do a tax exchange. And he's like, if I can't find anything, I'll just pay the tax and move on
Hmm.
because oftentimes people can be forced into making poor decisions with a tax exchange just to avoid tax.
Yeah.
I've seen people overpay and, just to kind of shelter it. And I gave him some ideas on, how he could do something temporary to kind of, kick the can down the road, not overpay, like buy short term, vacation property, something like that, and just kind of park your money there for a little while and then sell that later and move into something else. But, that's a big one that could really affect real estate transactions. It might force people to hold on a little longer instead of selling.
Yeah.
The other one that's really interesting is the lifetime capital gain exclusion, talking about getting rid of that. So you can't sell your primary residence
Mm.
after 2 years and avoid capital gains up to that, 250 threshold and 500,000 threshold.
Yeah.
Um, talking about potentially eliminating the ability to take accelerated depreciation, cost segregation. I mean, there's so many things on the table, and that's the problem, is that it's all speculative, it's all proposal. There's really nothing concrete in writing,
Mhm.
so you really can't do anything other than wait to see what comes out. But corporate tax rates, that could be, I mean, obviously it's going to be punitive to businesses, but it's not much more than, what we're looking at right now, depending on how far it goes. If they go up to 40%, that's a big deal,
Mhm.
versus going from, where we're at now to what, 28 or 29%.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit of research because again, headline numbers, fear mongering is not where I want to be. I think if you understand, I think there's a couple of things. The first thing, I don't really listen to what people say. I listen to what people do, right? Because I think they don't always line up. I think it's very clear that this administration is targeting real estate. Now they're trying to be slick about it. They're trying to target the big boys, right? They would love to go after Blackstone and American Homes and these deep pocket investors who have profited from the last crash and all of those things, right? So I think everything they're trying to do is target them. I do think there will be some innocence, kind of caught up in the wash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of what's been going on. So I think that's coming. What does that mean? I don't know, because you're right. It's all a proposal and there's a negotiation. But if I was a hedge fund or someone who had a pool of capital and it was value add stuff that you tried to get into and out of every 3 or 4 or 5 years, you're going to have to look at your business model because you
Yeah.
probably were dependent on 1031 exchanges in your business model, right? Why give up 30% to the IRS if you don't have to, right? So I think there would be some business model changes going forward. And then I did collect some numbers because again, I'm thinking about mom and pop investors. It looks like between 2016, I'm looking at my notes here, between 2016 and 2019, 12% of real estate transactions involved a 1031, either on the buy or the sell. That's actually a
Mm-hmm.
little more than I expected, but yeah, so it's far more prevalent than I thought, right? 12%. And then according to NAR, National Association of Realtors, so like all things, I think their numbers are biased, but again, it's all I have. They're saying that 84% of that 12%, right? If you can do the daisy chain of math, involved a small investor.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't define small, but I'm going to guess mom and pop. So again, the 1031 exchange is a lot more prevalent for, mom and pop investors. I've used it a dozen times, probably, maybe
Mm-hmm.
10 to 12 times. over the years. So I think it's used a lot more than people think, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And like I said, it'll keep people probably from selling. More people will hold property versus sell. So it will definitely affect transactional volume. It'll definitely affect, in real estate investments in general, to the extent, in what degree, we don't know yet. Like you said, it's just hard to say, what the real effects are going to be. But, the interesting thing is, so I'm all for infrastructure. Okay. We haven't invested a significant amount of money into roads, bridges, utility grids, things like that, wastewater in a lot of areas, water treatment plants, just, there's so many things we need to invest in from a national standpoint, from an national infrastructure standpoint. So I get that. Now, here's my thing. Why tax people to pay for it? Just print the money like they're doing with Wall Street. You know what I mean? Just print bonds and let the Treasury buy them, or, let the Treasury print bonds, let the Fed buy them and pay for it that way. I mean, if we're going to go down the path of modern monetary theory, then let's really put it to work where it's needed, not in the hands of speculators on Wall Street and the investment bankers. These guys are all buddies. Jay Powell comes from the investment banking world, and, he's just hooking up his buddies with all this stuff and
free money.
Yeah. So, and that's why that, Biden wants to go after the big banks, the big investment funds, and tax them exponentially more than the average corporation. The problem is, again, good intentions, bad consequences. So when you just generally raise corporate tax rates, it's not going to affect just the top income earners. It's going to affect all businesses. And the problem is with something like that, you've got to really target it, because I'm okay with certain, companies paying a little bit more in tax or paying more transactional taxes that are getting the free money to transact. But when you're talking about small business that gets penalized with corporate tax rates increasing, it stymies growth. That stymies job creation, things like that. So, if we're talking about, we need to create jobs, we need to stimulate the economy, we need to get people back to work. Once restrictions are lifted and, the support of unemployment goes away, and people are more incentivized to go back to work, then just print the money, pay for the infrastructure, get it done. And, leave people alone with taxes right now, because it's counterproductive to raise taxes on smaller businesses. And it will ultimately affect the smaller businesses, because a lot of them are suppliers to the bigger companies.
Yeah. So let me put a pin in the 1031, because I want to go there on the capital gains tax next, or corporate tax. So the last thing on the 1031 you were saying that I just wanted to agree with in a wrap up is it's going to slow transactions, right? It may have a momentary blip, like you may get a few people listing this year because they want to take care of their last 1031 exchange. But yeah, it was, I mean, I'll tell you this much, right? Let's just say I bought 40 homes in 2010. That's not the number, but let's just say that's the number. And my plan all along, and I've been telling people on this channel, my plans in 2023 or 24 was to 1031 out of those 40 homes into small apartments. Cause I saw I see multifamily coming back to earth in a few years. You take away the 1031 in 4 years, you know what I'll do? I'll just keep the homes. They cash flow, they rent just fine. And what that means is there's 40 homes not available for first-time home buyers in 2 or 3 years. I'm just going to keep them. That's what it means.
The interesting thing about all this too is, will they propose that all of these changes are retroactive, meaning going back to January 1? So if it gets, past this year, it doesn't start 2022, starts in 2021. So, I mean, there's going to be a big battle, because what a lot of people may or may not realize about taxes in the tax code, it's power. That's how politicians give favors to corporations and to, investors and to big business, is through the tax code and through tax breaks and loopholes. So there's going to be a huge fight over all of this. And really, at the end of the day, and I've said it for years, the solutions are just get rid of the tax code in general, let everybody pay at point of sale, have a general, consumption tax that's paid at point of sale. And, it's just a flat tax rate that then anybody who's undocumented, illegal, whatever you want to call it, working under the table, nobody escapes. And the more wealthier you are, the more money you're going to spend. And you're going to spend more tax dollars in that regard. So then nobody gets out of it, but for people watching, there are some things coming down the pipe. They're going to fund more IRS audits. So they're going to increase the capacity and ability to do audits. They're going to start auditing bank accounts. So banks will have to report So you won't be able to hide because you gotta, you got to keep your money somewhere. So this is where cryptocurrency and blockchain comes into play, where a lot of people could potentially, put assets there, put cash there, and kind of avoid the banking system. Which maybe that's another video we could talk about, is what's the real effects of blockchain and crypto on the banking system, credit cards, and from a tax situation. But the real big things coming down the pike are more audits. Generally, it's going to be higher income earners. They're going to go after the ones that they didn't have the resources to go
after. A lot of
after.
skin on the. They're going to look for skin on the bone. They're not going to go after a 20K wage earner. They're not.
Yeah, but a lot of people underreport, and they use different bank accounts and stuff. And when they start auditing your bank accounts, you're not going to be able to hide. So
yeah, you know what? I saw that. I read that over the weekend in one of the articles. Nobody's talking about that, right? They're going to increase what they can ask for from your bank. I'm like, God damn. I mean, I just hate that intrusive nature of big business or of government. It makes my skin crawl. But kind of rolling back to the kind of tax changes, I think there's, again, kind of everything has unintended consequences. And I think what's going to happen for the people that have capital, what I call risk capital, they're going to just change their formulas. And I think, if they're going to invest different, or they're going to invest in different locations, right? Maybe the US is not, friendly to risk capital, and they're going to go elsewhere. Maybe they're going to go to Asia or South America or Africa, or who knows, right? When you have risk capital, you don't have to use it here. You can use it elsewhere. And you know what? Maybe that comes away. I guess the last question is, they are talking about getting rid of the stepped up basis or greatly reducing that. Does that kind of, impact any of your decisions, or does it scare you a lot? Or it's like, I'm dead, who cares?
Well, that is concerning for people that want to pass along their wealth to, either their family or to nonprofit organizations, things like that. So yeah, that is a big deal. That will greatly affect the whole, estate planning, wealth planning industry, in terms of their services that they provide in tax planning. So yeah, that's a huge one. And again, some of these things are going to face a lot of pushback and a lot of fighting, over and about. At the end of the day, it's at some point you just got to stop. Let's look at how can we make this fair all the way across the board, and make it more simple all across the board. People spend a lot of money, time, energy, effort, and capital trying to minimize their tax liability.
Legally.
Yeah, legally. Yeah. When all of that resource could be put back into producing and growing and investing. And, that's what creates jobs. That's what spurs the economy and things like that. Not taking 50% of everything somebody makes and everything that they've earned, worked for their whole lives, to give it to the federal government to spend on whatever they want. And wherever you fall on the political spectrum, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, they all waste your tax dollars. They waste it. It's not efficient. It's not the highest and best use. And you have career politicians that have never created a job. Most of them never even worked a real job, spending your tax dollars on their little pet projects that, are completely wasteful. Yeah. And, I've been in the military. I was a government contractor. I've seen it firsthand. When I was a government contractor, their budgets expire every year. So they'll go out and spend money on, useless items just so that they can get the same amount of money next year, because if they didn't spend their full budget, they wouldn't get it back. Yep. So, it's ridiculous what goes on and how much waste there is. Our taxes could really be a quarter of what they are if you got rid of all of the waste and put the money where it should be put: national defense, infrastructure, national infrastructure, and welfare, and Medicare, and all of that for those who can't, not those who won't. Right. That's what needs to happen. So anyways, I'm going to get off my political bandwagon. It's both sides. It's everybody. It's a very inefficient, corrupt system that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying kind of in this first one is pay attention. I think changes are coming. Will they be what's currently proposed? Probably not. That's the whole give and take. If I were to rank them right now, and again, maybe I'll get your ranking, right? I think stepped up basis is most likely to go away or be greatly reduced from like 10.1 million or whatever it is now to $1 million or something. I think next is taxes going up. I think that's the next most likely. Will it be 39 or 43 or whatever it is? Maybe not, but it'll go up. And then I think the last one is the 1031 exchange. I kind of think that's the order, but I think they all have some changes this year.
They do. And the biggest tax we're facing right now, and maybe we can, talk about that in another episode, is the liquidity tax. In other words,
Ah, yeah.
inflation. That's the tax we're all facing and paying for right now. And hyperinflation is on the way.
We will use that. Inflation will be topic number 3. Thanks, Greg.
All right.